Thank you for joining Vancouver Bitcoiners. Please enjoy our next guest speaker. Thank you to our sponsors, Adaptec Group, Canada's premier event-driven development company, and Bull Bitcoin, Canada's premier Bitcoin company since 2013.
I want to introduce Ben, BTC Sessions, Nomads. He's Canada's premier Bitcoin educator. Welcome, Ben. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm glad to be here doing a workshop on Saturday, but got the invite to come and chat, so figured I would. I think I'm just going to kind of ramble about some of the cool shit that I've been playing with the past few months. So I'm going to kind of leave this open, so if people like have random questions in the middle of what I'm talking about, just go, because I'm sure some people have been experimenting with various types of hardware, software, all that kind of stuff, and I prefer to kind of keep this as a conversation rather than me just, you know, saying words at you. So,
Ben, it's probably easier for standing over there because the camera's just going to be filled.
So I'm visible? All right,
Yes.
cool. All right, there I am. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of get a bit of a feel in terms of hardware, what people are using here and what you're familiar with. So in terms of hardware wallets, first off, how many of you are using hardware wallets and doing self-custody? Just so I know. Okay, all right. Trezor, Ledger, Cold Card, Foundation Passports, Seed Signer. All right. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about hardware, some of the devices I've been playing with. You know, a number of you have been using Trezor, Ledger, and those are some of the most familiar and longest running companies in terms of hardware out there. If you haven't, others, it's definitely worth dabbling. There's some super interesting stuff there. One of the things that I like about things like Cold Card, Foundation Passport, Seed Signer is one, they're Bitcoin native, Bitcoin only. And so when you have a hardware device that natively supports multiple other coins, with more complexity comes more attack vectors, right? So if your device inherently has to have support for all of these other blockchains, then you know there's a risk to be had there. Something like Cold Card, something like Foundation Passport, something like Seed Signer, those ones are able to focus on just Bitcoin. All of their manpower is going towards just that. So you know, I have better security in that realm. I've most recently done a video on Cold Card, and that's one of my workshops that I'm doing on Saturday. I'm doing a deep dive on the Cold Card. I've used the Cold Card for plenty of years, but I hadn't really dove deep into all the functionality and everything that it could do. And so when I got to do this tutorial, I wanted to make it a pretty in-depth one, covers everything that I could. And I was kind of honestly blown away at how much they kind of baked into such a small little package. The versatility of what you can do with it is pretty astounding. So those that haven't used a Cold Card, it doesn't come with a native app. You don't have an app on your phone or on your computer that's the Cold Card app. You pick a third-party app that you use alongside it. So something like Sparrow Wallet or Spectre Wallet or Blue Wallet on your phone, or you know, there's a ton of different options. Electrum, whatever you choose, that's kind of your window into using your Cold Card. You can create your wallet from there, your seed phrase from there, and you can do a lot of interesting things around that. So you use a Trezor or a Ledger, you generate your backup, you write it down. It's pretty much it. You might have a special pin that's like a hidden decoy wallet or something like that. More or less, that's kind of the functionality that you get. The Cold Card, there's a lot of interesting things that you can do. So with a Cold Card, they've integrated something called BIP85, which allows you to, when you create a wallet, you have your backup seed phrase, your 12 or 24 words that you write down. From that, you can then create up to 10,000 separate wallets from your original wallet, all of which are kind of like children seed phrases from the original parent one. And all of these are totally segregated. If somebody got a hold of one of these wallets, there's no way they could work their way backwards to get the original wallet itself. And so in terms of you as an individual, you could look at this as, okay, I've got my master cold card for my long-term savings, but then you could use it to derive maybe hot wallets that you would have on your phone and use for day-to-day. And the benefit with that is if something happens to your phone, your hot wallet on your phone, you can have a regular written backup for that, but also the cold card itself is the backup for your hot wallet, or perhaps with another hardware wallet that you have. Or if you have friends and family and you want them to self-custody, but you're really worried about them managing and keeping that backup safe, you could be that kind of last resort that they go to where I broke my device and I lost my backup. Don't worry, I've got my cold card. I know your account number was, you know, the 5th slot or whatever it is, and you can just regenerate it for them and they have access to it. So you get to be, you know, the Uncle Jim to your family.
It sounds like it's going to be like the allowance for kids growing up.
Yes.
Pocket money.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I love the versatility that they've baked in there. On top of that, they've got really interesting stuff with the PIN codes that you can use. So as I was saying, something like a ledger, you can have a decoy wallet. So, you know, somebody comes and threatens to hit you with a $5 wrench unless you give all your Bitcoin. You put in the decoy PIN that has a little bit of Bitcoin on this secret wallet, and then your actual wallet, they never actually see. With the cold card, they actually have specific functions that you can do. You can say, if this PIN is put in, this will happen. So for example, if this PIN is put in, it will go to the decoy wallet. If this PIN is put in, it will wipe my seed phrase, so it's no longer on the device. If this PIN is put in, the entire device will be bricked and be unable to be used, or it will be locked for an hour and it will have a countdown. Or you can do pretty much anything you want with the PIN, and it's all specific, and you can have multiple different PINs to do different things based on the situation you find yourself in. So you've got just tons of plausible deniability, and it's really customizable. I wanted to touch on, yeah.
Is this kind of somehow related to the seed phrase or passphrase?
Yeah, so it's BIP85, the PIN stuff is related to BIP85 that I was talking about before, where you have your wallet, your seed phrase, and then all the child seed phrases. It ties in with that, so it's creating secondary, tertiary wallets from the original. Yeah, so that's what the pins are themselves. Yeah. They've also got the versatility of like a normal wallet where you can add a passphrase to it, same kind of thing, except for it's not the same standard. It's not BIP85, but you can add a passphrase and basically create an entirely different wallet with your gold card. I wanted to touch on some of the new things that they added with the cold card. One of the bonuses of cold card was that you can use it air gapped, meaning you use a Trezor, typically you're plugging it directly into your computer. If you're a little paranoid, you may worry about having your hardware wallet connected directly to an online device. With the cold card, you create your wallet. You can do it entirely offline, literally plugged into a 9-volt battery, so it's not touching the internet whatsoever. You can create transactions on your computer, put it on an SD card, plug it into your cold card, and sign the transaction, approve it, and then take that SD card back to your computer to send it. So it just kind of, it has that air gap between you approving a transaction offline and you sending it online. Other wallets have the same functionality. Foundation Passport used the building blocks that Cold Card set out originally, kind of based themselves on that. They do it a little bit differently. They do it with QR codes back and forth. You can scan QR codes on a mobile device and on your hardware wallet device. So it just makes it a little bit easier than SD cards going back and forth. But they're adding in things like NFC for the cold card, where you can just tap your phone to get the transaction up and approve it, and then tap again to send it. The other hardware device I wanted to touch on was the seed signer. Now, you played with it a little bit. Has anybody else touched a seed signer yet? Has anybody else heard of the seed signer? Okay. So one of the most interesting things in the last little while that I've seen in Bitcoin is the advent of build it yourself hardware wallets. And so this can be created from run-of-the-mill parts and put together by yourself, and nobody would ever know that you even own a hardware wallet or anything to do with Bitcoin. And so the benefit there is, Ledger had a leak of its client database a while back. And so if you had ordered a Ledger, there's a good chance you're getting a lot of spam, or you're getting mail directly to your house that you may have scam. Did you get some of that?
Still getting.
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories. So before I talk about what the seed signer does, I just wanted to say, if you're ordering anything to do with Bitcoin, even if you haven't up until this point, maybe consider sending it to a PO box. Just kind of gives you a little bit of insulation. Doesn't, your home address isn't going to be on a dark web list of people who used to Bitcoin 10 years ago, 10 years from now. So just maybe consider that. But again, the seed signer, you can build it from run-of-the-mill parts, put it together, and it allows you to create a wallet. It allows you to create multi-sig, do a ton of different stuff. Again, with run-of-the-mill parts. It's really, really cool. If you're a tinkerer, if you like playing, building things, well worth a look. It's actually not too difficult if you can get the parts. They're a little harder to come by right now, but worth playing. Now, I don't know what kind of timeline I'm on here right now.
You've got about 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. All right. I wanted to touch on a couple other things, but first, I was going to kind of leave it open for a few questions before I move on. I was going to talk a little bit about nodes and Lightning and stuff like that for a bit, but any hardware questions, anything that you guys wanted to mention? Yeah.
What's the cost of the seed signer at the end of the day?
Now? Well, they're doing the Raspberry. Yeah, if you can source it, that's the top part. They're doing a Raspberry Pi Zero. I don't know what those are going for right now, if you can find them. But you can, there's a little camera in the back. Camera's like a few bucks.
So you can use up to 10 Raspberry Pi. Ideally, you want to use Raspberry Pi Zero without Wi-Fi, or you can use any of them. Doesn't use like a custom.
Yeah. Yeah. Technically speaking, when they started kind of the project together, you could have put it together for, I think, $40, maybe $50, something like that. So really not too bad. Now, we'll see, but they're working on, again, being able to build it with lots of different types of hardware. So we'll see. Any other hardware?
If I were to migrate from Ledger to Cold Card, should I just order the Cold Card and just enter the same 24C and
Yeah. So
allow 2 copies,
Yeah.
2 signing devices?
Yeah. So you can port it over. You may consider not doing it that way and just creating an entirely new seed. Reason being, if you're using Ledger with the Ledger Live app, there may be some data leakage there in terms of them potentially knowing some of your addresses, UTXOs, stuff like that. There may be exactly what kind of data gets back to them there, but you have to at some point interact with the Ledger Live app to update things. So if you do look at doing a cold card, I would just create a new seed. I would maybe coin join those coins and then send them over. Yeah. But yeah, I would create a new seed phrase. But you can do that. It does allow you to input your previous seed phrase if you see it. So, yeah. Their last hardware questions from me.
I just think it's really cool you can do it without internet, that part you were saying.
Oh yeah.
That's a really good selling point. I think.
Yeah. It's a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, you could technically buy a piece of paper, the dice, roll a die 256 times, and you could create a Bitcoin wallet entirely offline that nobody would ever know existed. And people don't realize that in a technical sense, all Bitcoin wallets already exist. You're just randomly selecting one, I think, and if you have random enough entropy, the chances of somebody ever guessing your Bitcoin wallet and being able to obtain your funds are so infinitesimally small that it's effectively impossible. So yeah, that's more or less it's just a game of chance is what we're getting at, but nobody's going to guess your hardware wallet's seed phrase unless you do it in a way where you're selecting your own backup words, because humans are notoriously bad at choosing random strings of words. So, yeah.
Even the strongest supercomputer can't even crack the code of the seed phrase.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
like for somebody to guess your seed phrase, if it's been if you've generated it randomly, it would all of us would be long dead before anybody could ever.
Some people bring up a quantum computer thing, like, oh, what about quantum computers? But they're not even close to strong enough.
Yeah, so you're probably there. Before I do run out of time, I wanted to kind of dive down the node rabbit hole, running Bitcoin nodes. How many here know what a Bitcoin node is? I'll start there. Okay, how many people are actively running a Bitcoin node? How many people would run a Bitcoin node if they knew how? Okay, I would encourage this as a good way of learning more about Bitcoin and kind of understanding how it functions. So Bitcoin node, basically you're posting a copy of the entire Bitcoin blockchain, every previous transaction that has ever happened, as a copy of the rules that govern that. And so when you run that software and then you link any wallet that you're using to it, you're in effect verifying transactions yourself. You're saying that my copy of the Bitcoin blockchain is the beacon of truth. And if somebody tries to send you a transaction that does not adhere to the rule that you're running, then you just ignore them. That transaction doesn't exist. It's not valid. If you're trusting somebody else to do that for you. So if you just have a wallet that you downloaded on your phone, and you still have your seed phrase, you still have custody of your own funds, but if you haven't actively linked it to your own Bitcoin node, you are trusting somebody else's. And not everybody has to run a node, but it's very important that you can if you choose to. I think it's worth experimenting and learning about how it works. And it makes you more resilient. Don't think of it so much as you helping the network. Think of it as more of a selfish action. It's like a self-preservation type of thing. I don't want the person that created this wallet feeding me incorrect information about what I own. I want to know for sure. So highly recommend. There's a lot of different kind of plug and play options. We were talking about Raspberry Blitz. That is a awesome open source option. I have yet to play with it. Maybe it's time I do a video on it. I think probably. There's plug and play options that are various shades of not as open source, depending on how you look at it. Umbrel has a super easy user interface. Their licensing is such in that you can audit the code, you can modify it, but you can't make money off of it. So licensing deal there. Ronin Dojo, there's Start9 Labs, there's MyNode, although not as maintained as it used to be. But there's lots of different options there, and it's effectively, you have a little device in your house, you have a little SD card, and you put some software on it, you plug it in, and then you go on your browser, and it will access all of the information on that little device. You can link any wallet on your phone, as long as it's a decent Bitcoin wallet that offers that option, any wallet on your computer, and you can access your node remotely from anywhere on the globe and know that you're trusting your own copy of the Bitcoin blockchain instead of somebody else's. It also allows you to create your own Lightning node. Who's used Lightning before? Okay, cool. Lightning, if you're unfamiliar, basically cheaper, faster Bitcoin transactions. I won't get into that. But yeah, very worth running your own Bitcoin node. Does anybody have any questions, just general questions about Bitcoin nodes, thoughts? Yeah.
You mentioned MyNode is less maintained than it used to be. Is it worth switching if you're running a MyNode?
Good question. I haven't been running one for a while. I did a video on one a couple of years back. I just had so many damn nodes running that I kind of had to back off a little bit. I would have to look at my node a little bit again. I saw an interesting development the other day, Start9. They created an easy option to import all of your Umbro Lightning channels like that directly into their own software. I'm hoping that this becomes a regular thing.
Rusty Leads did that first.
Oh, did I?
Catching up.
Oh, really? Okay, awesome. So, but I love that that's happening because that interoperability, I think that's key. The fact that it's you're now starting to see it, it's going to force other people to act, so you're not stuck on a single platform. I love the idea of how people get roped into they have only Apple stuff or only Android stuff or whatever. If you're stuck in the Apple ecosystem, it can be a pain in the ass migrating. But the easier it is, the more likely you may be to dabble. And so when I see stuff like, oh, you can one click migrate everything from Umbro to something else, I'm excited to see a lot more. If it's working for you, I don't necessarily see why. I did like it quite a bit when I was using it. Right now I'm running Umbro and Rona Dojo. I'm going to do Start9 soon, and I guess Rat Blitz soon. We'll see which ones I keep running, but yeah, let's see. Yeah. Any other node question? Yeah.
For Bitcoin nodes, is there a way to generate a yield, like a passive income from my node?
So with Lightning, it would be small, but you can. So I think what will develop over time with the way that fees and everything are structured on Bitcoin base layer versus Lightning is kind of inverse. So with regular Bitcoin transactions on the base layer, it's all based on computation. How much space is your transaction taking in terms of bytes? When it comes to Lightning, it's actually based on value. So like on Bitcoin base layer, you've seen transactions worth $1 billion go through for a couple of bucks. The fiat amount of Bitcoin has no bearing on the transaction cost. Whereas on Lightning, it does, because with Lightning, you're effectively locking up Bitcoin between two parties. So, if I had a channel open to you, I'm taking Bitcoin, I'm locking it up between the two of us, and then we're basically exchanging, I'll say like receipts of who owns what. We're updating a tab, and at any point, somebody could close that tab, and we'll get the correct amount of Bitcoin. But it's not just between us. You may be connected to 6 other people. I have access to bump funds through you to other people and vice versa, and my end. So with that, when I lock up capital, what you can do is some people say you're a business, and you're like, hey, you've got a really well-connected node. I need inbound transactions. I need the ability to receive inbound transactions, which is often the tricky part of Lightning. Will you open it for X amount of time for this much liquidity, I'm willing to pay, 1%. That's probably, but a fraction of a percent currently. But so down the line, I think you'll see, and that's kind of, I don't want to say risk free. There's some risk involved, but you maintain custody of that option. So if I open a Lightning channel to you, I can close that channel at any time, but I'm also generating some yield from that without lending my Bitcoin to somebody else. So the trade-off there is much bigger in the traditional sense of, not your keys, not your coins. I'm going to give you all my Bitcoin. Hopefully it gets back to me. So yeah, there is opportunity there right now. Don't expect to make money on Lightning, but yeah, there's potential. I saw another hand.
Yeah, I have a question about initial blowdown mode.
On what?
Initial blowdown mode. When you start up your node,
Yeah.
It's like needlessly paranoid question, I guess, but I heard somewhere you should get like a trusted source to get that first synchronization, because there's possible attack vector that you might get someone like getting you wrong. Okay.
So there's
It's like a trusted list of.
Well, so there's something called an eclipse attack. I guess that would be one that I would think of. And what would happen there is if, I think now the threshold is that a Bitcoin node will connect to, is it 10 peers now? Is that what?
The last few months, I think it's 10 or 11.
Yeah, so basically if every node that is connected to you, if you're surrounded by malicious nodes that are feeding you false information, then that could be a problem. But if one of those nodes is truthful, then the whole attack is kind of moot. So it's less of a concern than it was before. I would say before it still wasn't a massive concern, but I don't know unless it's somebody else says something.
Just check the word caching compared with the internet.
Yeah, you can check.
That's kind of like.
Yeah, it would be exceptional to see somebody that got eclipse attacked like that.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, I don't think it would happen, but yeah.
How do you're running 2 nodes, you're gonna maybe spin up a third, you've got cold cards and 12 other software wallets. How do you store your seed phrases?
I lost all my Bitcoin in the voting accident last night. No, so
Like, are you stamping steel like every one of your, like
No,
if you got
no.
your main thing and
No,
your
so when you see a tutorial that, as I build that wallet, everything that's done in the tutorial is wiped out. It's no longer.
That's not true. Someone took your.
Yeah, with the exception of the other day, I did what LN bits or something, and I got lazy and I forgot to wipe, and so there was like a few thousand sats on there or whatever it was, but I looked at it, I was like, oh, I deserve that. But yeah, so I have my setup that I like. I do use some multi-sig, but I also have a couple of dedicated devices. The multi-sig I've done in a way, I'm mostly worried about user error. I'm worried about if something happens to me, I'm going to be able to access it. So that's kind of the concern there. And I've done it in a way where there's definite trade-offs in terms of privacy in the way that it's done. But that's just for that subset of my Bitcoin. So I know at least some, my family, like we could lose 75% of all of the important stuff we have, and they'd still be able to go with a single key, and they'd be all right. But then I have some other dedicated wallets. And so I try to keep it as simplistic as possible. And I try to only use certain ones. My day-to-day wallet, just for like pocket change, I tend to use Moon just because it's lightning, but it also does on-chain. I love my cold cards, but then with some stuff, again, for simplicity's sake, for stuff that I want my family to access, I've got some Trezor stuff going on too. So it just kind of depends on what I'm doing, but I do like multi-sig. I think it's getting better and easier and more accessible. and the idea that if somebody kicked open my door and got a hardware wallet that was sitting there, they would effectively have nothing. They need some more pieces to that puzzle to begin for any amount of money. So, yeah. Oh, I know that was a bad answer. Did my best. Yeah. I'll leave it there, but yeah, thank you guys.
A big thank you to Vancouver Bitcoiners executive crew. This would not happen without all of you. And finally, big thank you to Murdoch Media for producing all of these episodes.